What's up guys? Today we're looking at the GAN 356X. Just a little warning, this review is going to get kind of long because not only am I going to go in depth on the 356 itself, I'm also going to go in depth by comparing it to the other popular 3x3s right now and telling you the main differences between them so you can kind of decide if you want to get the 356 or not based on how it compares to 3x3 cubes that you might already own. So if you look in the description below, I am going to put time codes there so you can easily skip around in this review. Maybe you just want to see how it compares to your favorite 3x3. Maybe you just want to see me discuss the pros and cons of the cube. Maybe you just want to see the description of the cube itself. No matter what you're here for, you can quickly skip around in my review with that. Or if you want to watch the whole thing, of course, you're welcome to do that as well. This cube probably doesn't need any introduction because of the amount of hype that's been behind it. This is GAN's first main 3x3 since the GAN SM, and the GAN SM was pretty much the most popular cube among top cubers. So a lot of people were waiting for GAN to make a sequel to it to see what they would do next. Now, GAN did release the 354, but they did say this wasn't the next flagship 3x3 in the line. It was kind of just a little spin-off, kind of like a small cube to see what they could do. A lot of people didn't like the 354 because of how loose and flexible it is, and it just kind of morphs in your hand while you're trying to solve it, and it doesn't feel very good to solve with. The 356 is, in my opinion, a huge improvement over the 354. The GAN 356 is 56 millimeters along each side, as the name suggests. I have the stickerless version, and it has basically the same stickerless shades as the 354. I personally love these stickerless shades. I think they're very unique, especially this kind of darker forest green. It looks really, really cool among all the other colors. The colors are a little bit darker than some other stickerless shades, and I'm someone who kind of solves in low light a lot, so I thought that might be a problem, but it turned out to be not that much of a problem at all, and I have no trouble solving this in low light scenarios. The 356 is the first GAN cube to feature these interchangeable magnets, so you can basically just go like this, and you can push through these magnets using these ones, and you just push it right through, and it takes just a matter of seconds to do. And that's just another way you can customize this cube to your liking. Because of course, this comes in addition to the usual GAN GES springs that you can swap out. It ships with greens in them, but you can see that I swapped the greens out for yellows. If I had to describe this cube in one phrase, I would say it's buttery smooth. And when I say buttery smooth, I mean that the layer turns aren't just smooth, which you can see that they are. There's no skipping or anything. It glides effortlessly over each other, and there's not really any texture at all, which is amazing. It kind of has this thick smoothness, and that's not to be confused with something that's like slow and smooth, like the Valk. It's fast, but it feels like it shouldn't be in a way. It's a fast, smooth cube, but when you're solving with it, it almost feels like it should be a slow, smooth cube, but it's not. It's really, really cool, and it's a really interesting feeling, and it's unlike any other 3x3 I've ever felt. The corner cutting is fantastic. You can do 45 degrees, even a little bit over in the front, and you can do 45 and even a little bit over in the back. So it corner cuts very, very well, which makes things like E-perms really easy to do. The cube is very fast, and I am sort of still getting used to it. If I do my standard U2 flick, you can see it goes over a little bit, and because of the awesome corner cutting, it doesn't really affect my solves much, but it is something I'm kind of having to get used to, and when I first started solving with this, I did have a lot of overshooting problems. And this is all with the yellow GES springs, which are the tightest GES springs, and with the strongest magnets in it. So this is as stable and as snappy and as stiff as you can possibly make it, and I still kind of tend to overshoot with it a little bit. So it is a faster cube, and that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone because GAN has always made very fast, snappy cubes. The GES springs are basically what we've come to expect. The yellow ones are the tightest it'll go. The purple and blue are very, very fast, and I think they're too fast. I think the vast majority of people are going to use yellow or green. I had green in there when I first got it, and I did think it was fine, but I put the yellow in just to make it a little bit more stable, and there wasn't that much of a difference, but I did like the yellows a little bit more than the greens, so they stayed in there. Like I said, you can put in the blues and the purples, which are really fast, but I have a hard time seeing any top cubers really solving it with the blue or purple in there. The same thing goes with these magnets. I have the strong clear magnets in here, and those are actually the ones that shipped with it. And I just do not see how anyone will use any of these other ones. And that's kind of a huge disadvantage, especially because a lot of people are saying that the expensive price, in the US it's $60. A lot of people are saying it's worth it because you get all of these customization options and you can make the cube basically exactly how you want it. However, I find that these magnets are all, or the case of these clear ones, the non-magnets, are basically unusable, and half of the GES springs are also unusable. So I have all these customization options, but I don't think I'm ever going to mess with any of them ever. The green ones are definitely usable, and I could see people using them, but definitely not the other two, and I don't know about any of these other magnets. Maybe if you like a much subtler magnet feel and you have a much lighter turning style, you might go down to like the medium strength magnets, but I just don't see anyone using the light magnets or choosing to use non-magnetized if they got the magnetized version. The cube feels really nice in your hands. The sticker is a very good quality. I've never had it fall out of my hands at all. The corners are kind of sharp and kind of feel really nice and solid in your hands, but they're not as sharp as the 354. This was something I kind of didn't like about the 354, and it was a really small little gripe, but the corners felt really, really sharp to me, and it's not like it hurt my hand, but it definitely wasn't as comfortable to hold because I could feel it kind of stabbing into my fingers. These ones are close to how the 354 felt, but they're definitely a little bit more rounded on the sides, which feels nicer. Just like the 354, this has these black internals, which I think gives this cube a really unique, cool look. The black spaces around the center make the colors really pop on the cube, and it's just a pleasure to look at. As for my personal opinions on this cube, this is definitely my favorite 3x3 I have ever used. The pros for this cube, in my opinion, is the plastic is a really good quality, it's really nice and grippable. The stickerless shades are really, really good, and despite being kind of dark, they're still easy to see in low light scenarios. The corner cutting is absolutely fantastic. I have never had something corner cut this well. The magnet strength to me is perfect. It snaps right into the layer. When I'm not overshooting with my rough turning style, it has this really pleasant snap as the layer turns complete, and it feels really nice. This cube is also the quietest cube I have ever heard. If you live with your parents or you have roommates that kind of get annoyed by the sound of cubing, this is definitely the quietest cube you can use. I'll show you guys a quick difference between cubes. The fact that it's the quietest 3x3 I've ever used is also definitely a plus. It just adds to the overall pleasant experience that I have solving with this cube. The only cons I can think of for this cube is the fact that it's very fast and it is still a little bit flexible. The fact that it's a little bit flexible isn't really a huge con, I don't think, because it hasn't really affected me during my solves. I do find the cube to still be a little bit too fast. I've done probably 500 solves on this at least. It's the only 3x3 I've used in the past like 4 days, and I'm still overshooting just a little bit. And I want to use this cube because it's the most pleasant 3x3 I've ever solved with. But if I can't adapt to how fast these layers turn, I might have to go back to a different cube just because I'm still overshooting a little bit. I should note that I definitely have a very rough, heavy turning style, and so a lot of you guys probably won't have this problem, especially with the stronger magnets and the yellow GES springs. So for this next section, I'm going to compare the 356 with other 3x3s that are very popular on the market right now. Also, I should note that when comparing this 356 to these other cubes, I'm going to be using my version of the 356. If I were to compare every single way you can customize this cube with all of these cubes, this would be like a 45-minute video, and I don't think anyone really wants that. And not only that, I think most people who use the 356 will be using the yellow GES springs and the strong magnets. I know that Feliks currently uses yellow GES springs and the strong magnets as well, and I think a lot of people will probably follow his example and do the same. So just keep that in mind going forward, because you could set this up to be a little bit more flexible or a little bit more loose, and you could set up the magnets to be a little bit less strong if that's what you want. The easiest one to compare is the 354. These cubes have very similar feelings. Like honestly, the only difference is the magnet strength and the stability of the 356. And obviously this will change depending on how you customize your 356. I think if you were to put in maybe the medium magnets and perhaps the blue GES springs, I think you would get basically a 56mm version of the 354. The only difference would be that these corners feel a little bit sharper. The stickerless shades, the plastic quality, the buttery feeling of the layers, it's all basically exactly the same. I will say that the 354 has a little bit more texture to its turns. It's definitely smooth, but there's a slight bump. It feels like the honeycomb pattern in the 354 is maybe rubbing against each other and making a little bit of a scrapey feeling, whereas the 356, you don't feel it at all. It's completely smooth. Like I said, depending on how you customize it, you could definitely make the 356 just a bigger version of the 354. However, because of these customization options, I was able to make this cube really nice, whereas I still just cannot bring myself to like the 354. It's just too flexible, too morphy, it just does not feel good for me to solve. In the end, I would just say the 356 is a definite upgrade to the 354, unless you're looking for a cube that has a small size because maybe you have small hands. Next up, we have GAN's 3x3 that has basically taken the world by storm. All the top speed cubers, it seems like, use the GAN SM. A lot of them nowadays are using the Angstrom version. Regardless, this is a fantastic cube and they are kind of similar in feeling. The SM is also very smooth on the layer turns, though I will say the SM is a little bit clackier. It has a little bit more of a clickety clack to it as the layers turn, whereas this one is obviously much quieter, being the quietest 3x3 I've ever used. Also, when holding the cube, the SM has very rounded corners and you can feel it. It feels almost kind of bubbly on your fingers, whereas this one definitely has a more squared feeling on the edges. The reverse corner cutting on the 356 is definitely better. I can go even a little bit over 45 degrees and it still corner cuts. Whereas with the SM, if I go over 45 degrees, I have trouble doing that. I have to kind of do it like 2 or 3 times to really get it to go. So the 356 does corner cut a little bit better. When you have the strong magnets in the 356, I would say the magnet strength is basically exactly the same. Both of these are fantastic cubes. I like the 356 more, but I will say if money is an issue for you right now, the 356 isn't so much of an upgrade over the SM that you should feel like you need to buy it. If you're kind of in a tight place financially and you just feel like you need to get the 356, in my opinion, you don't really have to. The SM is still very close to being as good as this one. And if you have the SM, I don't know if the 356 is worth a $60 upgrade. I just don't think it's that much better. But of course, this is all up to you. The GTS 3 has also really taken off in being a very popular cube, but these do feel quite different. They're both very fast and they're both smooth. The GTS is definitely a smooth cube as well, but the GTS is a lot more snappy, kind of like the SM was. The layers feel like they snap into place more, and I think that's mostly because of the plastic quality of the GTS 3. The way that the plastic feels on the GTS 3, I think, is the only thing I don't like about this cube. It feels really cheap. The whole thing feels cheap. It even sounds cheap. It feels like the plastic isn't a very high quality, where the 356X is on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. The plastic quality is really nice, it's smooth, it's quiet, it doesn't clack around as much, everything's just kind of really smooth. I'm sure you guys are probably sick of me saying the word smooth by now, but it really is just the best way to describe how this cube feels. The strong magnet strength in the GTS 3 combined with the really light plastic makes it so that there's almost a texture in the pieces as they move, especially if you're doing like U2 turns, because you can kind of feel the magnets interrupting the turn as the layers slide across each other. It gives it kind of a bumpy texture, even though the pieces themselves aren't bumpy at all. The corner cutting for these cubes is about the same. I can corner cut a little bit over 45 degrees both ways on both of these cubes. The magnet strength feels a little bit stronger on the GTS 3 than the 356X. I'm using the normal GTS 3. There is a GTS 3 LM, which has light magnets, so that one might be closer to this, but this normal GTS 3 that I have, the magnet strength definitely feels a little bit stronger than this one, which I think helps it be a little bit more stable of a cube because the magnet strength is really holding these pieces together, whereas this one with slightly less magnet strength allows it to morph a little bit more. The Huanglong has a very similar feeling in that the plastic feels similarly very high quality. The Huanglong is also very smooth. There's no texture between the layers. The big difference between the Huanglong and the 356X is the Huanglong is not flexible at all. It's very, very stiff. It loves to stay in a cube shape, and to a lot of people, myself included, that's a really good thing, but it leads it to be a very different feeling than the 356X. Even when I'm really trying, I cannot get this thing to really like morph. Like I'm pushing the layers and like they come apart, but that's only because I'm like moving the whole layer. Like they just do not like to move in place like the 356 does. Like you can kind of make them move in place like that. If I do that same thing here, it doesn't work. Another thing this leads to is that the corner cutting in the Huanglong is definitely not as good. You can corner cut over 45 degrees, but you definitely have to give it a little bit more strength. And the same thing with reverse corner cutting. You have to really kind of like try to pull that forward. Whereas the 356, like I've said numerous times, has amazing corner cutting and you don't have to put in any extra effort at all. The magnet strength in the Huanglong is also quite a bit less than the 356. Normally I like my cubes to have stronger magnets because it helps it be more stable. However, the Huanglong, despite not having that strong of magnets, it's just such a stable cube that this was my main for a while. But the poor corner cutting on the Huanglong kind of leads me to like the 356 a lot more, especially if I got something like E-perms on the Huanglong. It basically would just ruin my times because it would just catch and just not really flow very well. This Supernova cube is my Valk 3M. Obviously, Valk 3 isn't factory magnetized, so a big difference between that is the Valk 3 won't be magnetized, whereas this is, unless, of course, you magnetize it or get a premium shop service like I did to magnetize it for you. The Valk 3 is much louder than this. It has a loud, blocky, clickety-clackety feeling. The layer turns feel quite a bit heavier than the 356. The 356 is obviously that really light, snappy, whereas the Valk kind of has that really slow and smooth. And this is where we get to an interesting comparison, is that the Valk is really smooth, but it feels like a thick, heavy smooth, Whereas this is smooth and it feels kind of thick smooth, but it's not heavy. It's like a thick but fast smooth. And that's where we go back to that word buttery that I was saying earlier. It's just, it feels like it should be slower than it is because the layer turns are just so buttery across each other. It feels a lot like the Valk, but it's just faster than the Valk. GAN really did a fantastic job making this cube feel unlike any other cube I've ever felt. Corner cutting on the 356 is a lot better than the Valk, but the Valk is kind of an old cube at this point, so it makes sense that corner cutting technology has gotten better over the years. Last, we have the MGC, and these are really not like each other at all. Of course, they're also on opposite ends of the price spectrum. This is $60 in the US, this is $15 in the US. So of course you know there's gonna be a difference in the quality between the two. The plastic feels really high quality and really light on the 356, where the MGC, the plastic doesn't feel low quality. I actually like how the plastic feels on this cube more than the plastic on the GTS3. It does still feel not quite as good as the 356. It's also heavier and blockier. It has kind of a scratchy feeling in between the layers, whereas this is completely smooth. With the magnets in the MGC, it's kind of just helping the cube stay in a cube shape once the layer gets to that completed turn. Whereas the 356, you can feel it kind of really helping like snap the layers into place. The corner cutting is definitely a lot worse. Like I cannot corner cut over 45 degrees on either side with the MGC, whereas with the 356, it's completely a breeze. But like I said, these cubes are on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, so it makes sense that this cube, because it costs over 3 times as much as this one, it's gonna feel a little bit better in your hands. So that's all I have for you guys. If you guys watched this whole thing, thank you so much for watching everything. I know sometimes I can talk about a lot of different stuff and you guys might not care about it all, but I just like to get all the information out there. So no matter what you came into this review looking for, hopefully I gave it to you. If you guys have any questions about this cube or you want to know how it compares to another 3x3 that might be out that I didn't cover in this video, let me know in a comment below and I'll try to get back to everyone as best as I can. If you guys like these how does it compare reviews where I compare it to other 3x3s, also let me know in the comments below. Sometimes I feel like I talk too much and I bore you guys, but some people have commented that they really like this kind of comparison review thing, and it's because of those people that I keep doing them like this. So just let me know what you like and what you dislike in the comments. I'll take everything into consideration. I make these videos for you guys, so I want you guys to have fun. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks again for your support, everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.